Hi first graders, we are going to be learning today about how to tell time, and that's what we'll be learning about this week as well. So one of the things that you might notice about the clock is that this is something called an analog clock. And the analog clock is the one that you would have seen in our classroom that was hanging up on the wall. We also had a digital clock in our classroom too. The digital clock will just tell you the numbers, and it'll put the hours first and then the minutes come second in a digital clock. But what we're going to be learning about mostly is this analog clock and how to tell time using an analog clock. So one of the things that you'll notice is that the analog clock has two hands, and they will rotate around the clock, spinning in this something called a clockwise direction. They spin around the clock always. These hands are always spinning, okay? The minutes hand spins a little bit faster, and the hour hand moves a little bit slower. But they are always moving in a clockwise direction. So that means they're starting up here at the top at 12 o'clock, and they're spinning around the clock. You might notice that the two hands that I have here are two different lengths. There's one hand that's going to be a longer hand, and that's going to tell you how many minutes there are. And then the shorter hand is going to tell you the hour. Okay, so on my clock here that I made, I wrote my hours in red. And those are the numbers that you would see on the outside of your clock. So you would have 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 is down at the bottom. 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. The minutes I've written kind of in a blue color around here. And one way that you can tell the minutes is by counting by fives, which is something that we've practiced a lot this year, and you're really good at it, so it shouldn't be very hard for you. So if you ever see that the minutes hand is pointing at a 1, that would be 5 minutes have passed. And then it goes to 10 minutes. And then the next is 15 minutes. And then 20 minutes, 25, 30, and it goes all the way around, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. And then once you're back to the 12, it's been a whole hour, and that would be o'clock again. So if it was 12 o'clock, now maybe it's 1 o'clock. And your hour hand is pointing here, and then your minutes hand would be pointing at o'clock. Mostly what we need to learn in first grade is telling time to the hour and telling time to half of an hour. So that would mean that the minutes hand went around the clock halfway, and it stopped at the halfway point, which is when it gets to the 6. So telling time to the hour and telling time to the half hour is what we're going to practice this week. Let's practice telling time to the hour. This one is pretty easy because when you're telling time to the hour, your minute hand is always going to stay up here pointing to the 12. If the minute hand is pointing to the 12, then it's always going to say o'clock. Let me get another tack here to get this one stuck up here. Okay, so telling time to the hour means it's going to say o'clock, which is this 00 here. So I'm just going to stick that in so it doesn't fall. Okay, but then when you are telling time to the hour, what you're looking at now is the red number. So that's going to be the hour hand pointing to whatever the red number is, and then we will just say o'clock. The minute hand, the long hand, is going to be pointing at the 12 anytime it's an hour and you're saying o'clock. So for here it would be 1 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and once you've gotten back to the top, 12 o'clock again. Okay, so that is how you tell time to the hour. Your hour hand would be moving from each of the numbers, but anytime it's an hour or o'clock, your minute hand is going to be pointing up at the top, pointing to the very top of the clock. And when you see that on a digital clock, it says 00, o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So to see those on a digital clock, it would look something like this. So if it was 1 o'clock, let me go back to 1, the hour hand is pointing to 1, the minutes hand is pointing to 00, it would look like this on a digital clock, 1 o'clock, okay? And then if we moved our hour hand, let's say we move it to here, what time do you think it is now? It's still o'clock, but I'm just changing the hour. What am I pointing to now? Can you see what the red number is? It's 5 o'clock. So 5 o'clock. Alrighty, let's try one more. Let's say that I point my hour hand over here. Okay, my minutes are still going to say o'clock. What is the hour pointing to here? See the red number? That's showing me the hour. It is 7 o'clock. Okay, so that is telling time to the hour. But we're also going to be practicing telling time to the half hour. And when a half of an hour has passed, that means that instead of your minute hand going all the way around for a whole hour, it's going to stop halfway. And halfway is down here at the 6, and that means 30 minutes have passed. A whole hour has 60 minutes. So half of an hour has 30 minutes. So I'm going to push that in and get it stuck there. Now, every time that we see the clock looking this way, instead of it showing 00, like it did up here at the top, it's going to show what it says down here, 30. 30 minutes have passed. So it's going to look like this on a digital clock. 30. 30 minutes have passed. What we're going to fill in now is what the hour is at the beginning. And it's pretty easy. It's the same thing we were doing before. We're going to look at our hour hand and we're going to see whatever it's pointing to. So this one is the hour hand is red. It's pointing to this red number. That means it's 2. The hour is 2. And the minutes, pointing at 6, the minutes are pointing to, it's hidden under there, 30. Okay, so that would be 2:30. We're going to keep our minute hand there, but let's try to find another hour. Let's move it down here. Okay, can you see where the hour is pointing to? Our minutes are still pointing to 30, so we're going to keep our 30 the same, but what's the hour pointing to now? Directly to the 5. So this would be 5:30. 5:30, showing on the clock right here. 5, and then the blue one's pointing to 30. 5:30. Let's just do one more. Let's say that our hour hand is over this direction. Even though it's upside down right now, can you tell where the hour is pointing to? Pointing directly to this red number here. Our minutes has not changed. We still have had 30 minutes go by. Our hour is 9. So this one would be 9:30. 9:30, okay? So we will keep practicing this. You might have an analog clock at home, or maybe you don't, and you just have a digital clock. But you can remember that when you're looking at a clock, there's going to be hour numbers written around the outside, and then each of the hour numbers counts by 5s to tell how many minutes there are. And we've worked on this a little bit so far this year in our morning meetings and in our calendar. So remember that for first grade, really all we need to learn is how to tell time to the hour. So o'clock, way up here at the top, o'clock. And then down here at the bottom for 30 minutes. 30, okay? So those are the two things we'll be working on this week. Half hour, an hour, and using the analog clock. I hope you guys are having a great day.